Hi everyone, in this video we are going to be doing a macrame bracelet project. Now in my last video I mentioned that after finishing all 4 of these loom bracelet projects using this bead set that is currently for sale in my Ko-fi shop, I mentioned that we're going to be pretty much almost out of all of the beads except for the silver line gold. You'll still have about 40% of this left. But the rest of them are going to be running low, and so I thought I would do a project that you can use in case you have some extra beads lying around and you just want to do something simple, and so that's why we're going to be doing this project. So for this project, you're going to need 0.5 millimeter thickness of bead cord or macrame cord or a knotting cord. And if you only have a Michaels close to you, what they have is something called Ceylon 0.5 millimeter beading cord or something like that. I'll put up a screenshot online. What I have here is Linhasita brand Brazilian wax cord, which is 0.5 millimeters, and the bead hole is 0.8 millimeters, so 1 millimeter is too thick and too big and it won't go through the whole of these beads, so that's why you want 0.5 millimeter cord. Now, the reason I recommend macrame cord or beading cord or knotting cord is that they're usually made of polyester or nylon, so they have a little bit of stiffness to them and it'll make it easier to put the beads on them. They also last longer because they're synthetic, and also at the very end we're going to be using a lighter to burn the edges to seal them. Otherwise, if you use something like cotton or hemp, you can't use lighter because that is a natural fiber and it's going to like burn and cause a fire. So yeah, don't use a lighter if you're using something like a cotton or hemp. Just glue down your knots with a glue like Aleene's Fabric Fusion. So to figure out how much cording I'm going to need to begin with, I'm going to take a measurement off my wrist, and my wrist is 5.5 inches around. And I'm going to do 1/2 inch, less than that, because I'm going to need a 1/2 inch for the clasping. So 5 inch is going to be my beaded section. So just take a 1/2 inch below your wrist size. And then from there, so this is how long your beaded section needs to be. Just tack on 8 inches to the left and 8 inches to the right, so for a total of 16 inches. So whatever beaded section you need, add 16 inches. So in my case, I'm going to need to cut a cord that is 21 inches. So 5 plus 16 is 21. And then I'm going to use this to cut 2 more of 21 inches because I want a 3-strand bracelet, but you could do more if you want more strands. Alright, so once you're done cutting all of the strands, remember how we added 8 inches to either side? So you're going to take the cord and measure out 8 inches, and at the 8-inch mark you're going to just make a simple knot to tie all of the cords together. So I'm just making a simple knot like this, and you want your knot to be around the 8-inch mark. It's not super strict because we gave a lot of extra, so just try to get it as close as you can to 8 inches. And then you can pull on the cords individually to tighten that knot. So now we have about 8 inches. I went a little bit over, but that's okay. Alright, so I've just poured out some beads, and so we're going to start stringing. So this is the 8-inch section that we've just tied the knot to, and this is the longer section, so the rest of it. So you're going to take one of the strands from the longer section and you're just going to put a pattern of beads onto it. Now I do have some patterns that I will put up on the screen, and I can also put it on my Ko-fi page. But to be honest, anything goes, and you can do whatever pattern that you like. So I'm just going to cut mine into a point so that it'll be easier for me to do that. So I've just cut mine into a point. So to put the beads through my cord, I'm just going to take the pointy end and I'm just going to put it through the hole of a bead like this and just string them on. Or alternatively, you can also hold your cord up and you can put the bead on as well. So whichever way is easier for you, but it's just easier for me to spear my beads like this, to be honest, like that. And so you're just going to put beads on until you get to your desired beaded length, which for me is 5 inches. Alright, so I've just put 5 inches of beads onto my first cord. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape on the end so that the beads don't slip off of this cord. And I'm just going to take another piece of my longer cord and I'm going to string another pattern on this. Alright, so I've just done all 3 strands and they're all 5 inches. So I'm just going to take the tape off. So now I'm just going to tie a knot over on this other side. And I tried to get the knot close to where the beaded section ends, but it's okay if it's not perfect. So next I'm going to put this around my wrist and I'm going to check to see how much wiggle room I'm going to need so that it'll be easy for me to be able to get this bracelet on and off with the sliding clasp. So I'm going to need about this much. So I would say that that is about 2 inches from the beaded section. So I'm going to braid the ends and tie a knot close to the 2-inch part. So to start finishing the end, I'm just going to do a regular braid and I'm going to secure the bracelet with some tape like this. And then I'm going to start braiding and I'm going to braid a little over 2 inches so that I can have a little bit of wiggle room for when I tie the ending knot. Alright, so I've actually braided a little over 2 inches. I've braided about 2.5 inches, but that's okay. I just want to tie a double knot at the 2-inch mark. So I'm going to take off the tape. So I just want my knot to be at the 2-inch mark. So I'm just going to tie a knot like this. And wiggle my knot close to the 2-inch mark, like that. So that's pretty good, it's close enough. So now I'm going to double up that knot by making another knot. And the reason I want to do this is because I just want this knot to be bulkier so that later on when I make my sliding clasp, it will be bulkier and my sliding clasp won't slide off of the knot. So here are my two braided sections, and now I'm ready to tie the sliding clasp. And we're going to do something called a square knot in macrame. So if you need to review a square knot using a different tutorial on YouTube, then that is the search term you're going to need to look up. It's called a square knot. So to start making the ending, I'm going to position my bracelet like this, and I'm going to overlap the two braided sections like this, and I'm just going to tape down the bracelet so that it doesn't move. So something like that. And then you're going to cut a little bit more of your macrame cord. You could probably do this with 8 inches, but I cut more than that because it'll be a lot easier for me for instruction purposes to show you what I'm doing with a longer piece of string. So I'm going to put this piece of string under my braided section and through the bracelet like this. So basically I'm going to put it under the ending, and I'm going to tie a regular overhand knot. So just a regular knot just to secure this piece of string. Alright, so as you can see, I have just tied a regular knot to secure this piece of string. So to make a square knot, we're going to alternate, and I've heard the word P and Q used for this, and you can use that visual if it helps. So this is a Q because it's a letter Q with the loop on the left side. And so I'm going to take this left loop section, and I'm going to call this the loop string. I'm going to take this loop string and I'm going to loop it and put it over both of the braided ends like this. Then I'm going to take this other side. I'm just going to call this the non-looped side, and I'm going to take the end like this, and I'm going to put it under the loop section, under both braided sections, and then I'm going to take it through the loop like this. So it's going to go over and through the loop, and you're going to tighten. So it's going to look like a pretzel. Then when you tighten, what you'll notice is that there's going to be one side with a bump. So as you can see, the bump was created here. There's a bump there. So whenever you get lost, just look at where this bump is, and that is where you're going to make your next loop. And we're going to be alternating loops. So earlier I made a Q shape with the loop on the left side like this. So that's Q. So now we're going to alternate. The bump is on the right side. So now we're going to make a loop on the right side. So here is my loop on the right side. So I'm going to make it go over both the braided sections. Then I'm going to take this non-looped part, so this straight part that's not looping, I'm going to put it under both the braided ends and through this loop like this. And when I pull, it's going to look like a pretzel, as you can see. And now when I pull, you could see that it's making a loop now that is facing the left side. Sorry, I meant bump. So now as you can see, the bump is on the left side. This was the bump from earlier, and now we have just made a new bump on the left side. So that means that we have to make a loop on the left side. So we're just alternating between Q's and P's, Q's and P's. So I'll do a few more. So now I'm going to make a loop, and I'm going to make this cord go over both the braided ends. So this is my looped section, and then I'm going to take this non-looped section, I'm going to put it under both of the braided ends. Sorry. So I'm going to put it under both the braided ends and also under. See? It's under everything and through the loop like this. When you pull, it's going to look like a pretzel, like that. And when you pull now, the bump is going to be on the right side. So now we're going to make our loop on the right side. So it's left, right, left, right. So we just finished making a loop on the left, so now we're going to switch over to making a loop on the right. So now I'm going to make a loop on the right, and I'm going to go over both the braided ends. I'm going to take this cord, I'm going to make it go under both the braided ends and also under this loop cord like that. And I'm going to pull it through like this. Pull it through. It's going to look like a pretzel. And pull. And now as you can see, it has made a bump on the left. So I'm just going to keep going from here, and it's not an exact science how many you should make. I tend to like to make up till this much, to be honest, like this much. I'll show you when I'm done. So this much is good enough for me, and now I'm gonna start sealing the ends. Alright, so to seal the ends, I'm going to just hold on to my bracelet, and I'm just going to cut this and give it a couple of millimeters like that. And then I'm just going to carefully melt down this end with a lighter. So just be careful not to burn anything down. So what's going to happen is when I put this to the flame, it's going to be hot and melty. And so I'm just going to press that melty part to the knotted section so that it will fuse with the knotted section and create a seal. So I have pressed that melted section onto this sliding knotted section to make a seal. And also I wanted to remind you again, it's very important, it's a PSA, do not burn your ends if you are using a natural fiber like hemp or cotton. You can melt and burn your ends if you are using synthetic fiber like nylon or polyester. So now as you can see, I have melted and sealed both ends against the sliding clasp section, and you really want to make sure that you don't accidentally burn any of your braided ends, and you're just burning that one part and sealing that against the sliding section. You can test your bracelet by sliding it around to make sure you didn't accidentally fuse your sliding clasp with any of your braided ends. So as you can see, this is working just fine. So you can just decorate your ends with some beads. So I just put out some random ones, and I'm just going to randomly string on some beads onto the cord ends like this. And then I'm just going to put them in like that, and I'm just going to tie a knot to secure them like that. cut. And you can also burn the ends if you want. All right, so here is the final result. So if you measure everything correctly and you give enough space for your ends, then it should slip over your hand quite easily. And to tighten it, you can just pull on the ends and the sliding clasp should be able to hold it in place like that. So this is adjustable and it'll fit many wrist sizes. So this is what it looks like. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope that you found it useful and that it'll help you use up some of your extra beads. And I really like it. It's got that cute minimalist boho vibe to it. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me in this tutorial and I will see you in the next one. Bye!